thanks everybody for joining and playing with us. I'm very excited of this style meetup. Actually, I think when we did it last year, it was one of my faves. So we have 3 analytics champions that has taken on board the challenge of preparing something really cool that they're going to show you. So let me tell you what it's about. What did we actually ask them to do? So we found a massive collection of data sets that is all about music. So thanks to Spotify, we were able to grab, multiple different data sets that is from the 1921. So it's like 100 years of music. And you can imagine from like records to listings to artists to all sorts of things. So we said, okay, you have this massive data, go and explore. Build something quirky, up to you. You have the tools that you have at hand, and just come and show the superpowers. You're gonna have 15 minutes to tell us what you found, what you actually built, how did you do it, and kind of, show off and tell us the whys behind, no? And all about demos, no slides aside of the ones that we're doing now. And we'll get some questions from the audience, so they have the chance actually to answer this. And then at the very end, you guys decide which one of the 3 deserves your vote, right? So no pressure, but play attention. So just to give you a little bit of rewind what happened last time, because I have no idea what's going to happen this time. We had 3 participants, and Steve took us through what I found really interesting from his take. Again, it was the same data set. It was all about superheroes that time. Steve, what he did is a collection of pages that actually was telling the story of what he did. So which kind of data he found, what are the different things that he used, what was the thinking process. So he was using it as a presentation. I thought that was very unique, which I certainly stole at work. Then we had Matt, that it was all about Marvel. And Matt, what for me did unique, it was the look and feel of all the different things he was showing us. And also he tried to use all the very edge sort of graphs and possible bindings that he could do. So really showing off there the tech skills. And then we had James. And what I really liked from James, it was how we should really leverage templates to make sure the look and feel of the things are exactly the same. And also he brought a game, which I can't remember the name in English of the game, where you give different points about like the wisdom and the strong and the different things. So that was pretty unique as well. So today, what do we have? I have no idea, but we have 3 contestants. The very first one is Christos, and I've been asked to pop some of the handlers. So there you go. Christos, if you want, take it away. After Christos, we'll have Jennifer, and then last but not least, we'll have Nick. So I'll pop the other handlers in a second, but Christos, time to shine. Take it away.
Thank you, Ines. Let me share my screen, and I'm counting. All right. Let's present first who I am. All right. I'm Christos Papadopoulos. I was born in Cyprus. I grew up there. You're over there in the Kingdom, and right now working in Greece. As you can see, I'm using custom map to show you where I am. I'm working right now in Macedonia, in Central Macedonia, and working in Thessaloniki. All right, a few things about myself. Let me remove that. I cannot remove that anyway. I'm a Salesforce expert, all right, 14 times certified. I'm a manager in Deloitte, Greece. I'm a father. You can see my wife and my little trailblazer, Achilles. I like shooting hoops, playing guitar, and actually, I'm a Greek Cypriot. And especially for this data set, by knowing music, it was really helpful for me. Let me clear that. All right, let's go to the real data set. Before I would like to continue with the data set, I would like to tell you one true story, which it is important. We received a data set of 200, actually, yeah, around 1,000 170,000 lines of code or lines of data. And I realized on the flows, or actually on the developer orgs that I was playing around, the limit was 250,000. So when I tried to play with the recipes, I had a lot of difficulties because of the limits. So I have to do a lot of transforms, change the data, move the different orgs, connect different orgs. But I can give you one. So I spend most of my time on changing the datasets and changing the data that I have. So you can see quite a lot of transform. It is just a few that you can see. So here's one thing that I was doing quite a lot, and I'm amazed by how the new recipe is working. I love it. Please give it a try. It's very easy to use. You can use almost everything. You can even add formulas now, and it's very user-friendly. I'm a big fan of it, all right? And one of the things that I did here, it was changing the dates or replacing some artist name and some other keys, and I will show you on the data. Right, let's close that. Let's move a second. Okay, here you are with my dataset. So here's my first dashboard. When I start my dashboard, I wanted to see what I can learn from that dataset. All right. So the dataset, how it came with energy, loudness, how instrumental is the song, and some keys and duration of the song. So I wanted to put them all together. So the first thing that I thought, okay, what was the most popular song? All right, what was the popular genre? All right, and I realized from the data that I had, it was indie and pop and hip hop and rock. It's interesting because indie is, let's say nowadays, everyone can record in their house and not everyone have to go on the record labels. So that's why it was the number one. So it's quite easy. I can prove that over here. And it was really useful. Here's a simple bar chart. Then I wanted to see, okay, if I want to put my son to sleep, all right, is there any connection between the energy, the loudness, and the instrumental of the songs, all right, of the journals? So I realized that the less loud is a song, the less energy it has, but they use more instruments, all right? It's more instrumental, less lyrics. But if I scroll down, you can see the more you have, all right, energy in the song, the more high, the louder it is. So this is the piece. And also there's less just music, all right? There's more lyrics and music at the same time. So it was an interesting, for me, connection between those three. Furthermore, I wanted to use some simple table, right? So I wanted to convert the milliseconds into minutes and see, all right, between the songs, what do we have here, right? And so I grouped the journals into major journals, all right? And I grouped all together and convert the minutes into, let's open it actually. Let's go reset, and you will see. Wait a second, let's edit, and let's explore that. Because it's a demo that I have to show what we have done. So what we can do here is that you can even use formulas over there. And nowadays, it's even simple formulas that you just divide by the time and the milliseconds, and then you have them over here. So I realized that jazz usually and classical music, they are longer. Also metal, they are longer minutes. But as you go down, you can see punk songs usually are 3 minutes average. So it's quite interesting for me to see that some songs are shorter, some songs are longer. It depends on the genre. Let's see what I had here. All right, close that. Furthermore, I wanted to see which one was the most popular, all right, songs in the genres also, and so use the heat map over here in order to reflect that. As you can see, there was 1,000 of different genres, but I had to group them all together, and then I have to see which one is the most popular. So you can see It's a good way to show, but maybe it would be better if I use a limit here, for example, so we can show better limit of only 20. I think that's the better way to understand which one are the most important for us. And wait a second, just to remove that, update. So this is a way to show a few things and how you can use the heat map. Furthermore, what I did on my dataset, I realized that we have the keys of the songs. All right, let's go back here. And what I mean by the keys is, in music, what we have different keys that usually a song is written. So I wanted to see, okay, what kind of keys do you use in the different genres, all right? In rock, I realized that they're using more A and G. The songs are usually written in that keys. And it's quite interesting because if you're playing guitar, those two chords are quite easy to play, all right? On the ED, they use almost everything, it depends. But also on the pop, as you can see, the G one, I group them all together and convert them. The original one was 0, 1, 2, 3, and go on. So I group them all together and I realized, okay, most songs, they start in the G key. Next is the F key. After that is the D key. But I wanted to see, okay, what we can get from that data. And I realized that in jazz, because jazz is playing different, how you call it, it's a different way of playing compared to rock, indie, or folk. They put more instrumental, they have different chords and more advanced. They're starting most of the song in F chords. Also, you can see here that I use also the heat map here to see what genres and most instruments, they're using more instruments compared to the others. So you can see I put them in the bucket all together. And then I group them by alternative rock, blues, indie, jazz, metal, pop, and rock. And you can see here is that in jazz, they use more instruments compared to other, let's say they don't have any, how you call it in English? They don't have any lyrics over there. So that's why you can see more heated over here. All right, let's go on. Another thing I wanted to see is that you can dance with music, and what kind of music you can dance, what you can use over here. Apparently, you can dance with any kind of music according to my data set. Doesn't matter, but there's some. If you're writing a song in E key, you have a better probability people to be more danceable for your song. Also in D, some other C or D sharp, they're not so good for dancing, right? But it doesn't matter for us because, as you can see, there's not any kind of music that you cannot dance. I took the more major ones, and you can see that you can dance anytime with any music, no matter in what key they are. So this is what I've used over here. Let's open up here just to see. It's quite easy to do that. And to the max of danceability, I have created a bucket of all the keys that I had. So I group them all together, and then I have the major genres to have them over here because I group them all together. All right, let's go to my other updates. Let's see the time. Furthermore, what I have done, I group the music stats by decades, all right? So I have a time graph, all right? So I group them all the years by decades. And then I realized, okay, did the music have energy as much as we have nowadays? And what is the loudness of the music? So what I realized is that back in 30s, you can see in the 30s, I can use here, we have the Great Depression, but also we have Second World War II, but something good also happened. Electric guitar was invented. Furthermore, you can see that also they started the usage of guitar distortion. And what I think it was a catalyst to change everything. So after the distortion, you can see we have a different way the music was writing, and you can see an increase in energy, and you can see also an increase how loud are the songs. You can see the peak at 2000, that it was the peak of how loudness was the music that we can hear. And then if you go on, people, they said, maybe we're recording too loud, the music get distorted. Maybe you have to record it in less dBs. And then I wanted to see that if it's that possible. So I used 4 albums that I love, right? And I can see it was almost correct, right? So you can see during the time, the loudness increased. System of a Down that was around 2000, it was the loudest album in a way of how high you hear them. And then it was close Nirvana and Lana Del Rey. Apparently, Billie Eilish was wasn't so loud in a way, but that doesn't mind for us because I am sure that the prosecutors, they did a great job and they produced great quality. So you have some errors, maybe the data set. Anyway, another thing that I wanted to see is that, okay, I have the data here. I have from 2020, 30, 40s. Is there anything changed over there? And I can see it was the acousticness. You can see the songs up to the 50s, all right? It was more acoustic. Remember when I told you electric guitar and distortion came on? So you can see here is the connection over there between those two. Songs become less acoustic and they start to use more, let's say, electric sound, right? Distortions or those kind of things. And that also had an effect on the energy of the song. Furthermore, another interesting thing that I realized is that also the danceability never changed. Always you can dance to the songs. And what I realized is that people, they used to hear more instrumental and speechless songs. And then you can see it started to fall. So maybe back the time, there wasn't so many songs with lyrics, but nowadays there are way, way more. Another random fact that I saw is that you can use filters, and in fact, I use just to see what are the not safe for work music you can hear. I also have it some of explicit. So I use Eminem. You can see I'm not gonna hear them maybe loud at my work. Furthermore, just an easy chart just to see the popularity by years. And I realized that maybe 2016 people, they needed some music to relax because it's quite popular. And I realized that not everyone is listening English-speaking songs, since Asian music is quite popular. A lot of top number ones was from Asia. And I guess it's true because, as you can see, as you know, there are more people in Asia compared to the other countries or continents. Furthermore, I wanted to put a chart here to see what's the best time to release a song. I removed the January because I realized when you don't have dates, because some data, they didn't have dates, so they didn't have months. I removed the January. So if you want popularity, the best time to release an album is around September, October, and November. December, they tend to, if you release an album, is not so popular, but if you want to have the best success, you can use that. Last but not least, what I have done here, I did a button of the song, so I can use, let's find an album, for example, System of a Down, and you can see I can choose 2 songs over there. Sorry, let me write again. Apply, and I can compare the 2 albums between the 2 of them. All right, and I compare the songs if I like. For example, Metro, that was 2. So it's quite interesting to see what are the 2 songs comparable and how good they are or not. Last but not least, what I did, I also used the discovery just to see, because I always wanted to see how you can increase popularity, because of the songs you want to maximize your popularity. And I realized that in AcousticNet, according to what I have dataset, I hope it's correct, the more acoustic it is, you have more chances to become popular. Furthermore, as you can see here, is that the energy, it has to be energetic, but not too much, not too little, maybe somewhere 70 to 80%, all right? You have more chances to be more popular, and you have different other things. Furthermore, I can see some other things over there, but I wasn't sure because I realized on the dataset they had some wrong fields or wrong rows. So I think that one was kind of wrong. That's it from my side. I'm not sure if you have any questions, but I can stop sharing. I can go back to my dataset.
Wow, fantastic, Christos. I mean, thank you ever so much. What haven't you touched? I guess
that was amazing.
Thank you. I wanted to show something that what we can learn from the dataset, all right? Because so I would touch almost every little things, and yeah. But if you want to go later on the Q&A more to detail how I build those things, let's go on later.
Yeah, you also took my job of letting you know there was 5 minutes left. So well done on that. So any particular questions, guys, up to you. You can unmute, pop it in the chat. It's your time, so attack.
I'm just glad you're music oriented.
Yeah, I want to say I learned so much with all the terminologies. I was like, oh, I didn't even know, this was a thing. Really interesting.
You play guitar, right?
Yeah, I play guitar, so it was quite helpful that
you had an advantage over the other two people.
Maybe.
Yeah, like I said, we could talk an entire day about how we built this, but we should probably present first, right?
Yeah, and so what did you find the most challenging? If you have to choose one thing, I know there has been some pickles here and there. But...
it's always the same story for me. The most challenging is the data preparation. So whatever I have to build, I spend a lot of time, maybe 70% of my time to prepare data, clean the data, because if you do that, then building charts is quite easy. Building, especially with Tableau CRM, is very helpful. Even without code, you can do. If you have the correct data, you organize them from before. That's why I started with the recipe. I really love that tool because it's one of the best tools that I have. And I did a challenge not to use Excel in order to edit my data. I said I will use only the Tableau CRM to do it. It took longer, but it's okay.
Nice one. Cheers, Christos. I think we have a question about being able to access the dashboard, which I don't think will be possible because everybody has done it in their own environment. You'll have the video.
I can share a PDF or image. That's it pretty much. That's the closer we can go for now.
Nice one. And we can also give you the Mahusive data sets if you want to go and find that. Okay, right. So let's do Contestant Two. So we have Jennifer now. So if you want to take it away, please blow us away with what you put together.
One second. Can you see my screen? Well, yeah, can you hear me? Okay. Before we get started, I just want to tell everybody here in all my single mom pandemic glory, I'm not posting pictures right now. So this is me. All you really need to know is I've been working with Salesforce for 20 years. I was doing data before data was a thing. So give me any system, it doesn't matter. Give me GCP, give me Snowflake, give me a data mart that I write on C#. I can work with any data system. But my heart lies with Salesforce Analytics and of course with TCRM. And this year I've been promoted to principal data architect at my company, which is kind of crazy because it's my dream job that I always wanted. And just because I have this fancy title doesn't mean I'm any different than anybody in the audience. So I've had a couple of, I learned a couple lessons in making this demo for everybody, and I'm going to show you why. So this is what I do for a living. This is what I do every day with, I have one data flow that I have like 500 nodes in, right? So I'm like, oh yeah, this demo will be a piece of cake. And I'm going to lay my ego at the door right now and tell everybody here that I got my butt kicked a little bit with this demo, and I'll tell you why here in a second. And so I took my ego down a couple notches and I said, you know, I'm not really a competitive person. I'm very competitive with myself. So what I build doesn't need to have all these super bells and whistles to impress anybody. What it needs to do is show you something that you can learn from. So if my demo can give you something that you can take away, then I've done my job. So instead of this first data flow here at the top, which has a ton of nodes, and I could have done this in data prep, but it's probably new for a lot of you, right? I was gonna show you all my skills in data prep, and then I thought, you know, I'm gonna go a little old school here. So this first one was my original data flow. And I'm not musically inclined. So I saw key as a field on there. And I built this whole thing on key with all these very complex nodes in here, right? I'm like, I'm going to do calculations and I'm going to do compute relatives. I'm going to pull like the first top everything. I'm going to give these amazing stats. Well, this is what ended up happening is that I built all this and then I ran it and I walked away from it. And then I sat down to go do my dashboards and I realized the keys did not join. So this is like real life for a lot of you, right? And how many times are we given a data set we've never seen before and we're told, you know, an executive has to, you know, go to a meeting at 5 and it's noon and you've only got a couple of hours to build this data and make some sort of presentation. So we're going to play a game with my demo. It's called The Executive Just Gave You This Dashboard and just needs to know a few things and you better get it to them fast. So how would you do that? Really easy. So I call this my exploration data flow here. Like this was my learning experience, right? Where I learned, oh, I can't go fancy because I have to work with a smaller set of what I was given. So instead I just put the tracks with the artist to the general Spotify data. And, you know, I thought about my audience. If it's executives, right, they're not going to care. I'm not going to have to explain all of it Christos explained, right? Like they're just going to want to know, say, top artists, top years, top, you know, what do they need to know to say in their meeting? And then, you know, if you can't bring in, like me, I couldn't get the genres to attach. Another lesson, don't do this at the last minute too, right? But sometimes we don't have a whole bunch of time to do things. You fake it till you make it. So you can always bring in a second data set right here, bring in the genres and add them later, right? Like we can put it in a different page, we can put it in a different dashboard, we can connect the data sets, right? So this is in real life how we're doing our jobs every single day, right? As we're going in here going, how do I get this to work to get the ask done? And will it be what my audience wants? And yes, they will probably change it 100 times. So let me show you what I did after I massaged the data, got it to talk, tell me what it wants. And when you're under a deadline, you can't do all the fancy edits, right? That I would love to do like I did in my first data flow on top. So this is what I did. Now, mind you, I might have to move my menus around here a little bit. This is using a template and I'm going a little old school. Just so you know, if you're an executive is going to want to know things very, very fast. And some of you who've been around for a while are going to see that this was I used one of the templates and modified it, right? Because why make a dashboard from scratch if you don't have to? And if any of you know Jason Winters and our design books, I didn't make this all fancy the way that like I really wanted to. I wanted to make it neon pink and very, very dancey. Instead, I use the actual recommendations, which are using white and the navy blue to draw your eyes to the colors. And instead of using the theme on the charts, I actually use the different bright colors, which is also suggested because it draws your eye. And then the supplemental data is at the bottom. So before I actually show you what the data says, I'm going to show you how I designed this, because if you're ever in a pinch, you might need to do this yourself. And so we called this carousel, and it's just a design trick. Now, if I had another week, I could probably go in here and make things bigger, smaller, you know, everything would align better. I don't work much with dashboards anymore, believe it or not. So I don't know those of you that do it all the time. You could drive yourself crazy with moving things around and a border on this and what color do you make the top and what color do you make the bottom. So with that same data, this is actually the same data. Christos just went into all of that spiel about every little detail of it. This is the same data summarized. So the design of this goes in a carousel. When you hit next, you can do as many pages as you want, but it rotates, or it appears to rotate. It's just an eye trick, and you can make things smaller and larger, or you can go in the reverse. You can make them all in the same size and rotate by page. You can even make things go into detail, like if you wanted top 5 artists and you wanted more, you go right into a bigger version of that, and then you can go right back home. But as you can see, this is to find data fast. And yes, I didn't format my percentages correctly. They still have the giant percentage on here. But how many of us have to go into a meeting and actually say like, oh, I have to go back and edit that? Because they're gonna edit 100 other things too after you build it, right? So for the purposes of making this relatable, I left it in there. And then what I usually do is I put the supplemental data at the bottom. So I take everything they would want to know. In this case, I narrowed it down to what is the most popular, by artist, by track, by song, by year, which one is the most danceable. Just so that if I was going into a meeting, I could say, guess what? Out of all time, all of this time here, the Beatles are #1. And I'm an oldie locks in the group, so I was born in '73. So I grew up in this era. So it's amazing out of this many years that the Beatles would be #1. So we could actually just click on the Beatles here. And then we could go into seeing what their top 5 songs are, what years they're, see, 73 right here. Here's my birth year. And then on Spotify, they also have a track popularity, which is different than the song popularity. So you could see, according to Spotify, if it was any different, like, for example, no, the top song and the top track are exactly the same here. But as you can see, this is a really, really quick way to analyze it. And then if somebody needs the data later, they can go down to the bottom and they can even extract this for an analysis, or they can just sum up what they need to know to kind of prove that the data supports what it's showing above. And for example, I just put all the stats I could pull in, and like I said, I should have formatted these percentages, but I didn't. But you can see the track year, the track release date, the song name, the song artist, the track name, and then all of the stats, which are popularity, danceability. So everything you would need to know by clicking on one component up here is all here at your fingertips. Because if an executive talks, they're going to talk 10, 15 minutes, right? So they're going to need to go in here and find what they need and show the supporting data, that the data doesn't have a hidden agenda here. So the interesting thing when I was going through this, I thought, because I wanted to play more with this data, after I got this build, I'm like, oh, for me, I want to know as far as dancing, right? Like, because it's pandemic and we're not doing a whole lot of that right now, unless we're dancing alone in our house. So the interesting thing with this was that when I looked through, I learned something I didn't know. And it's just like Christos said, everything's danceable. Winter Wonderland came up #1 out of the whole entire thing. And I'm thinking, I don't dance to Christmas. Well, you can dance to anything. So the danceability is actually a number, and I'm sorry, I'm on the spectrum. So I start, kind of going off on tangents when I look through here, and I start thinking about Christmas and, well, maybe I should start dancing to Christmas music. And it's really interesting what the data does tell you once you get it out there and start looking at it. So for everybody in the audience who's building this, yeah, I probably didn't use the right charts for the data I'm showing. And, if you're actually like a data scientist, I'm probably not in that category, but my job is to get people what they need quickly so our sales reps can make money and we all have a job tomorrow, right? So I built this dashboard based on the fact somebody needs this data and needs it quick. And if I want to, I can go through and find some really interesting statistics in it. So the other thing is you go through the most danceable years and they go like 2020 and then 2018. So it's very interesting that we didn't do a lot of dancing in 2021. Which one was the most danceable? I think we're just not there yet. But we did I'm thinking for 2020, for everything we've been through, that's a really high number. But you see what I'm getting from this data? And it was a very simple design, right? And you could just make this a monster. You could put all of what Christos showed and carousel it, for an hour if you wanted to. Well, with how many limits the pages have on the dashboard. But this is my skill. My skill is getting that data to talk and getting that data out there for somebody to use it as quick as possible. Because in 20 years, I've cried in the parking lot, right? When I didn't do something the way I was supposed to, and you learn. And so now it's just ingrained in me to build like this, but it's not anything difficult, right? Like I can't imagine what Christos put in his, right? Like his had, beautiful graphics in there. Now, if this was a real project that I had, at work, I'd put in the chat, I'd probably build an API to Spotify and put a theme song that would play in here. Now, I'm going to go back here and show you something else cool, is that you can actually, like say they're in the meeting and somebody said, I want to know about a certain year. Let's just, for purposes of pulling like 1988, right? Some things haven't changed. These things still lag a little bit, don't they? Why isn't it doing that?
Click apply at the end.
Oh, I can't see it under my menu. Okay. That's what happens when you're in Zoom meetings, right? Everything covers your screen. Boom. There we go. So if we do 1988, it's funny, we still have Beatles going on here, which I think is really, really interesting. But listen to your heart over here on Spotify tracks. And then we also have the top 5 songs. So if we look at top 5 songs, Roxette, I don't know how many of you were around in 1988, but I remember that song, Listen to Your Heart. So you can go down here, find out the stats about it. But it's really versatile, right? You can go in here and really take any of these categories and let's go over to dancing. Dancing's more fun. Okay, so let's go into here and do a year. And I'm trying not to overwhelm you and just kind of go slowly through each of these elements because I know it's a lot in 20 minutes. So if we do 1988, still get some Beatles and some Fleetwood Mac. Boy, some of this stuff, we're still dancing to the 70s and the 80s, which is cool. But here's something, we've got, a lot of different genres in here, even though I don't have genres in here. But as far as danceability, it goes across board, just like Christos said. And then I don't even know what, children's story, what is that? Yeah, and I use a scatter plot in there because it looked cool. Slick Rick, children's story. We'll see if this was a real project, then I would make it where we could click on it and go right over to Spotify and check it out ourselves and add it to our playlist. But as you can, okay, I've got my 5 minutes. I'm really, really trying not to overtalk this time because I have a very bad habit of that because I start geeking out. But if anybody would like, when this is done, I will maybe make a little cheat sheet and give it to the group about which templates I used and just how I put that data flow together real quick and the little tricks to making the cards, because this can be, oh, that's a really cool one. Like if we look at everything, look at when you combine the artists with their songs, Nirvana and Come As You Are. I would have thought it would be Smells Like Teen Spirit, but no. And he even beat Thriller. I didn't think anybody beat Thriller. I thought Thriller would be up there on the top, but it's interesting. The top songs that come out of Spotify, we have Nirvana beating Michael Jackson, and then we have Bob Marley. So we have kind of a melting pot all the way around. But this is so much fun. Like when I get off of this meeting, I'm going to go in here and go through this more because I love music. I don't know all the little things about music, but you know, I think all of us could use more music in our life with what we've all been through in the last year. So, okay, I'm going to stop talking now. If you have any questions, let me know.
Thank you. I think there was one question, Jem, for you around what template, if you used a template for that carousel.
Oh, sure. Yeah, it was, we'll just go back over here and I'll show you. I learned this back in 2007 or 18 when these came out. It was so much easier to just take an existing template and then make it your own, because I could really drive myself crazy. Oh, I picked the blank one. You can tell I don't work with dashboards very much anymore. Okay, dashboard from template. So my favorites are, and you can actually carousel the most with this one. I believe this was the one that I used. And then I just rounded the edges on the components. And there's a lot of, it comes with a lot of pre-built links, which is useful if you're going to make a very complex dashboard. For me, I took a lot of those out. But this was, I think, our original, they call it a tile dashboard, but this was our original carousel. With mine, I wasn't sure when I started if I was going to need 4 or 3. So I always started with 3. When I really make dashboards like in real life, right, that aren't for demos, I always start with one that has like only one, like I'll take this template and use the one in the middle for an overall summary. And then I'll branch it to another template that has 3 and then 4. So we broaden the data, but it's all summarized at the top, not going through the spreadsheet, if that makes sense. But yeah, everybody here should be doing this because I like getting some time back. I don't know about you, but it's kind
so
of
essentially what you're doing is just like leveraging the templates and then using the pages within it to make sure you have that carousel effect.
Yeah, and you can combine dashboards too. So you could make 2 or 3 dashboards and link them to each other if you wanted to. Now the data won't always behave the way you want when you do that, but there's a lot of tricks. I don't know, Ricky, is Jason Winter's the design book still out there? Because that might be a good thing for the group, because all of these psychological concepts on these templates still apply even to this day.
Yeah, I think I have a link. I can share that. I just need to dig it out, and I'll share it in the chat.
Yeah.
Also, now when you're saying taking from different dashboards, just one thing that might be interesting for people to know is in this next release in summer, it's making it a lot easier to copy components and like different aspects of dashboards between dashboards. So yeah, have a look at that once you have the what's it called? Once you have somewhere available. Is there any other questions from people? Feel free to unmute yourself and ask Jennifer.
I know everybody's probably a lot in 20 minutes. Well, thank you for having me.
Cool.
I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much for giving us this presentation and all these insights. Maybe now people have some inspiration to what they should go and listen to make it all more danceable, and have a little, I don't know, boogie at home in the time where you know where some might still be on lockdown, right? All right, so next up we have Nic to deliver his demo jam or his dance off piece. So Nic, do you want to take it away?
Yeah, sure. Thank you very much. This is hard. Like there's so much competition. This is
nobody.
Oh, we all bring something different to the table. You're the best of the 3 of us here. You know it too. So
well, I've kind of broken the rules that the other people have set for me in a way. So
keep breaking the rules too.
So I'll show you.
Looking forward.
So you see my screen okay?
Yep.
Oh yeah, he's already beat us. I'm just gonna
No, well, I haven't, because I've gone off piste. I've designed my own thing, which is not maintainable by future people. So okay, so okay, so yeah, so same, I guess, same challenge as everyone else, but so what I did, so I've looked at the data. I took the data that we had. We've got a lot of good data sets in there, and I have not gone to quite the extent that everyone else did in terms of trying to fit the data together. Although if I had have done, it would probably made for more interesting things. But nonetheless, so looking over the data that we've got, the thing I thought might be quite interesting is to kind of look at things. The way I kind of look at dashboards and when I build dashboards is to try and go from kind of point A to point B. So from kind of a wide view down to maybe a more granular view, so that you can kind of hone in on some of the maybe more interesting insights or pieces of interesting information in the data. And this also gave me an excuse to use some charts that I never get to use, and I feel sorry for them because I never get to use them. So there's some charts in here which you might think, oh, that's a bit of a strange choice, but that's just because I wanted to use them and I wanted to learn how to use them as well. So I've probably not used them in their best application, but they look nice. So up here, so we've got our fairly traditional sort of chart across the years here. So what I noticed was obviously we've got data that's quite a high volume, and we've got data across a number of years going back to the 20s up to the present day. So one of the things I was kind of thinking of was, well, how can we maybe make this data a little bit more manageable to look at? So I'll show you what I've done in a second. So, but from a high level point of view, if I was coming in here and I was sort of thinking, right, well, what's really changed over the years? Has anything changed? Are there any trends here? So a long view of everything is a good way to look at it. So one of the things I was interested in was sort of tempo. How has BPM changed over the year, the beats per minute? You know, did it start off slow and then get faster and then so? Well, not really. I mean, we've still got some BPMs down here, which are quite averages are quite high. We've got some big peaks here in the 70s, so that could be a data issue. Definitely something to investigate maybe, or there might have been some incredibly fast songs, although 237 BPM is heart-stopping. So what we can do though is, because we can bind to these things, we can always have a look at other measures as well and maybe see how other things have changed. So valence, that's something new, something that I'd not come across before. So that's to do with emotion and whether the emotion of the music is positive or negative or happy or sad. So it was interesting to see that things have kind of evened out in the data over time in terms of that. So I just thought, as an interesting term, it was interesting to know what that was like. So much like sort of other people have looked at in their data, duration is an interesting, you know, how has the duration of music changed over the years? I mean, looking at the average line, sort of stayed more or less the same, really. But one thing I did think of when I looked at this data set was, obviously we're only getting this data from one source, so Spotify. So when I was looking at things like popularity, I was thinking, well, it seems to be heavily weighted towards more recent decades. But then how long has Spotify been around? And what are the demographics of the people who are using Spotify? There's all these things to consider as well. So obviously something I would love to be able to do something about, but unfortunately I didn't. So that's always something to consider when you're looking at your data. Maybe if you've just got one data source, maybe look at how that might be impacted by other data sources. So we might, for instance, if we had other reference data here, we might be able to compare and contrast, or maybe even overlay them. So then we can even things out over time. So we can see what was truly popular back then as composed to today. So if we were taking samples of people and their interests, things, there's many things you can do. But going back to categorizing the data. So what I did was I just, so this is something which I found, it's one of the things I found in data prep, which is nicer than in traditional data flow. So using the new sort of recipe where is it? There it is. So one of the nice things we can do, or the things that seems a little bit easier to do now, is bucketing. So this is kind of a bit of a tangent from what we're talking about, but it is quite nice in the way that you can very easily bucket these things together. As someone who comes from a pure data flow kind of thing, I was never really into using recipes, and I know this is not a new thing necessarily, but it was one of the things that I actually would make me quite happily switch over to using data prep. The other thing which I hadn't really thought about when I started using data prep, and I have started using more in my role now at work, so I didn't do a bit of a background biog thing at the start, by the way, but I'm a reporting manager at Financial Force. So I work with, I'm more sort of dashboards and SACL and all those things, I guess, more so with a bit of data flow stuff thrown in. But yeah, data prep is definitely interesting in the fact that especially if you're someone who writes a lot of case statements and does a lot of processing on the data post getting the data set to use, so you can actually see things in real time whether they're working or not, and you don't have to wait 25 minutes to find out that you've missed out a single quote on a case statement. So that's a really good thing. So I found that quite useful in cleaning up the data for this project. If I just go back to where we were. So yeah, so I put these things into buckets. So we've got our tracks now in buckets. So I've kind of gone for a kind of other bucket for pre-50s, which is just to summarize that earlier data. And then we've got some other decades here. So I've kind of put it into eras or decades. And then looking at this is kind of a high level view of average popularity in these decades. But what we can do is we can look at 1, 2. So I've put it into 3 because I thought 3 is probably a nice number just to look at. So then we can see, well, in these eras, who was popular in these eras based on obviously the popularity of people looking at stuff in Spotify. And that gives us another level down. So then we've got, so in the 80s, we've got some familiar names there. We've got Aha, Whitney Houston, Wham. And then in the 60s, we've got Van Morrison. There should be somewhere, yeah, so there's some Elvis there. There's Marvin Gaye and people like that. So, and then 2000s, coming a bit more to say, we've got White Stripes and we've got Bray, Rihanna, people like that. So we can see that, okay, well, here are the artists. So if I was coming to this dashboard from another planet, where maybe we had a different kind of skew on music, I'd be able to see, okay, well, these are popular people. Maybe I should go and check these out. Although in my opinion, I tend to go and check out less popular stuff. But that's just me. So what we can look at is, okay, so we've got Whitney Houston, and we've got Morrison here. Let's pick Neil Diamond as well, just for fun. Elvis is always an interesting one. Hendrix, Elvis. And as you can see, I'm sort of going around collecting my little segments here. So we can see, okay, let's pick White Stripes as well. And as I'm collecting those segments, you'll see that they're feeding into this, a Sankey chart. Very few people use these, but I think they look nice. But they do serve a purpose. So in this instance, what we're doing is we're saying on the left-hand side, we've got our artists and their tracks. And then we've got on the right-hand side, the era. So what we can see is, well, who is enduring? So who are the artists who've been releasing things across different decades and are maybe still going now, or, you know, they're operating across a long period of time. So obviously we've got Elvis here. So he's released records in the 60s and the 70s and the 50s. And then we've got Neil Diamond, who's crossed some as well. And we've got some Hendrix. Obviously in Spotify data, there's always the potential for re-releases and remixes and things like that. But I guess that technically qualifies as well. And then as we get more towards sort of recent times, we've got some 2000s there, but then it doesn't really span much to other ones. But it's a nice way of visualizing attribution. So to give this a kind of workday kind of methodology, you could kind of say, well, if we had maybe left-hand side would be salespeople and the right-hand side would be products. And then we'd say, right, well, whose sales have contributed the most to which of our product groups or something like that. So these do have real world applications, albeit you don't see them very often. So out of our data we've got here, we can select. So let's maybe select one or two of these. So we can select. Oh, that wasn't what I wanted to select. Let's go back. So if I select some of these again. Okay, so we pick some different ones, but that doesn't. So then we've got another chart. So what we have is, so this is pick 3 ingredients. So what we've got from our data up here, we can then look at some of the artists we've selected and we can pick 3 things, so 3 measures, and compare the artists. So I've pre-selected tempo, acousticness, danceability, but we could pick some other ones. So we could say valence, liveness, and I'll unselect some of these other ones, and you'll see things slowly start to change. So we've got danceability, liveness. So let's choose energy instead of liveness. We'd be expecting danceability and energy to be fairly similar, I would have thought, in their ratings, perhaps. So then we have our chart. Now, the thing I found with this chart is actually it's quite hard to highlight things. So I've not done myself any favors there. But so we could select some of these. So we can see, okay, so let's select maybe some more. So let's go back. So let's deselect that one. Okay, so I think I'm going to stick with John Lennon and Whitney Houston for this one. So, okay, so in terms of granularity of the data, so now we can see, okay, well, here's all the tracks that make up what we've got here. So you could see, okay, so we've got quite a lot of tracks in there. I mean, a nice thing to do, and it was something I was considering, was maybe having some kind of way of deduping these. So you just get a unique one for each of the artists or something like that. But yeah, so we've got a nice cross section there. Let's add maybe add some more. Maybe make it a little bit more kind of. This is where it gets fitting. Okay, so I think we've just got John Lennon in there. There's nothing like flailing around clicking on things. Okay, so here we go. So we've got a little bit of a mixture in there. So what we can do is say, right, okay, well, I want to trim that down to maybe 10 tracks. So that's given us our 10 tracks there that are kind of representative of what I've clicked up here, perhaps, maybe not. So then what we can do is, what we've got here is a bulk action. Now these are interesting, and I've never really had a chance to use it in anger, so we'll see how this goes. But so what we can do is we can take our data that we've got in here, and this is all native Tableau CRM functionality. There's no trickery here. So we have this option on our tables. So if you've got a data table and you've got some data in there and you want to do something with it in Salesforce, then you can. So we click here and create upload list. So that'll do its thing. So what has that done? It's a very good question. So what that will do is it will go and create records in Salesforce. So we've got a playlist object here. So This is our latest one we've created. So we can see here we've got playlist. And what's that? Spotify playlist URL. Interesting. Okay, we wonder what that is. Okay, so we go back here so we can see it. Okay, so what's this? Spotify. So what do we have in here? Oh, it's our playlist from our data. So as most of you who can join the dots probably see. So what we've done is we've created, we've stored some data in Salesforce, and you probably maybe don't even have to do that, but I've done that. So following the pattern of the bulk action, so you've got behind that, you've got a Visualforce page, which helps to query the data from the table. And that then writes that data into objects in Salesforce. And then we've got an API, we use the Spotify API to then take that data and push it into Spotify. And then Spotify passes us back the URL, so we can go and visit the playlist whenever we want. So if I go to here, so in here, so then obviously we're storing the tracks for these as well. So if you want to go back and look at them, we've got our related tracks there. So there's our tracks that we've added. And there we are. So yeah, so it's connecting Spotify and the data and Tableau CRM together. So. And I think I'm probably short of time.
Well, this was impressive, Nic. I think a lot of people were commenting throughout, and they were saying, well, first of all, you're one for using the odd visualizations. There's a little conversation around that. And then the second thing was just click it. You were building up the suspense. No, it was really impressive. I don't know if anybody online had some questions that they want to shoot here. Unmute yourself or put them in the list. But I can definitely say I now know how to create my next playlist, right? Christmas party, I don't know, whatever, dance off at home.
Well,
all kinds of options.
The next steps for this, I was thinking it would be really interesting, like in a kind of wider world context, if you built playlists in using something like this and then fed it into sort of, maybe if you had physical stores or something like that. Remember those? There
was one upon a time I went there.
Yeah. And then you could have, maybe you could like connect your kind of sales volumes to what music was playing in the store at the time. And then you could analyze that data and then base sort of then have playlists that kick off according to maybe you've not had enough sales that week. So you stick on the playlist that gets people buying stuff. So,
ooh, peppy.
So there's applications for this stuff, although I'm not making it. So I don't know.
Nic, I have a question for you.
Yeah, sure.
This is Jennifer. Did you I had trouble. I had to turn my arrows off for reversing the data. There were nulls on a lot of the earlier tracks because I wanted to see what was like the least played song, but there were a ton that had zero. Well, you know how first rule of EA or TCRM is null is null is null, right? We can't do anything with the nulls.
Yeah.
I didn't build anything into the data flow to account for those. So does yours do that? Because a lot of people in the chat are asking.
No, I didn't. I've been a very bad data citizen, and I've not really done a lot of data prep.
We want to see the reverse, but we don't.
But yeah, I think that's an interesting point because it is something that I think people don't really consider. I think unless you're someone who's like looking at the data, like nulls.
Yeah, you have to know that. Like
yeah, exactly, and I think a lot of time you can get caught out by things like that. So this was an interesting thing that came up the other day because there's an option in the analytics settings, isn't there, where you can check a checkbox and say treat my nulls as zeros. that I feel like that always used to be in the settings, but now apparently it's not.
They
And you
changed
Only for old orgs.
Because someone
I
was
believe
asking
it's
about
on
it
by
the other
default
day.
now.
Yeah, and they said, oh, I had to raise a case to see the checkbox. I was like, are you sure? But yeah, it's that long since I've looked at it. But yeah, it is one of those things where, and you do get quite often, you'll get different parties of people. So if you're speaking to it, you'll say, well, to me, I kind of, in my sort of layman's terms, I like to see a 0 because I know nothing's there. But then there's a whole other audience of people, namely customers, who want to see nulls. And it's like, well, yeah, but if you're using a compare table and then things get a bit tricky, and then there's different ways of saying, well, is it null?
Or they want anything that doesn't have anything excluded, right? So how do you make everybody happy?
Oh, I love that. Yeah.
If only it always went like that. You can just leave the nulls out. Okay.
But that's something which I found tricky in analytics to begin with, was exceptions, where you don't have something, and because obviously it's feeding off what data is available to it. If you've got something like, well, here's all the value, the categories you could possibly have, and here's the data we've got. I think that's kind of when you're first starting out with analytics, you think, well, how am I going to bridge the gap? How can I show them the products they haven't sold? You kind of have to sort of expand it a bit, don't you?
And I think also the audience, one thing you should maybe, because I know you're wired like me, and Christos, jump in, and I know it's your question and answer right now, but I think it's because your data is, I'm just gonna say it, really badass, right? Like what you've showed us, but there's a lot of like, you can't take the people out of this, right? Like, for example, Spotify's only been out so many years, and all the people in the 1920s are probably not around anymore. So they're not tagging their favorite song, right? So there's a lot of people thought that goes into building these that you have to explain to executives who are not data people, right?
Yeah. And that's kind of part, I guess that kind of comes as part of our job, whether you kind of like it or not. You kind of have to do the data thinking for people. And I think that's why this sort of stuff is interesting, because it's not just technical, it's also rationalization as well. It's like, okay, so we're looking at a number, but is that all that number means? How have we got to that number?
You better be able to explain it too, because if you're the one who built it, you're the one that'll be asked. That means, Christos, you have to teach everybody how to play music now.
Yeah,
sure,
absolutely. That was awesome, by the way.
I'm up for the challenge. I have those things and I don't know how to play them. So whenever you want. Okay, so whilst we keep this conversation going, I just wanted to say I'm going to pop in the chat right now a link for all the attendees, 29 of us participants. It's time to choose who is the winner.
We need categories.
Who capture your heart the most, right? So get ready.
Both of them did.
Also, I'm just sharing the link is here as well. If you want to take your phone, or you can go ahead and do that as well.
Christos, chime in before the results come in, because I think you win on like the music part. And then
I want to say that like the 3 presentations we had was unique in every single way. I think, Christos, you were amazing at just kind of like giving the laydown of all the different technical aspects of music and really telling a history, like a storytelling of music. I learned so much about like, you know, history, the music history, and like how energy was influencing that, like how different genres work in terms of keys. Really, really fascinating. And I think, Jen, you switch it up, and then you really had, I like the concept, I forget how you said it, but with the executive game, like, let's see how much we can do in a little time and just make it pop, right?
Yes.
Really working with
and I have to give you mad props, Reiki, because a lot of that I learned back in 2018 when you were first teaching the academies. And remember, I didn't even with the data, but I could not build dashboards worth my life, and you were like, just use the template.
Yeah, but I mean, they're great, right? And you really showed all the different options with the templates to make sure that from an executive point of view, you get that summary kind of drilling down into the details. So I thought that was really cool. And also, you know, now we know what to do in terms of danceable music. And then Nic, I mean, you blew us away with that whole creating the playlist, but so you kind of sell yourself short in the beginning, but I know, you know, you really took it home in terms of really showing the possibility of extending dashboards just beyond the what you see in terms of what's on the screen. But also really like with what you did with your presentation was, and we had that discussion afterwards as well, just data quality and how important it really is to kind of look at your data just before you release it and say, hey, just go ahead and use this data. Then you just do a sanity check and say, hey, maybe there's some peak, maybe there's something here we need to investigate. It doesn't really make sense. So I think that was really interesting as well. All three of you, is there any kind of like lessons learned, takeaways that you want to share? I know beforehand we talked about time and complexity and data work and all this.
Yeah, I know the audience, you know, like I said, I admitted mine while I was presenting, but mine was taking my ego down a notch and not doing what I personally can do best, but what my audience would respond to. And I really realized that I live in a bubble. And I know the other two guys probably feel this way because we're all working at home right now, right? So we're in our little bubbles and we always do what we do for our jobs, right? But a lot of times we're not out of that box. And so this audience is a different audience. And I had to go, whoa, I can't do what I normally do at work, right? Like I can't be all fancy. Like I really, or I'm going to lose the relatability, right, of what I'm doing. So for me, that was the biggest lesson, is admitting my faults, like while I was building it, for the benefit of the audience to know they're not alone.
Yeah. What about you, Christos? Do you have any kind of lessons learned you wanna share with us?
Yeah, make sure I understand the limits of the org first. That was a painful lesson I have to learn. But
do what Nic did and just don't use it all.
Yeah, but another things that I can learn is that, yeah, even I try to use the templates, but with the dataset, it didn't work very well, because usually I'm starting with templates, especially the smart ones. But when I put my data into those templates, didn't figure out very well, all right? But yeah, I think I learned a lot of things during the time, right? Even I was amazed by, okay, what that has to do with that. What happened during that time? Why we have more energy? Why we have, yeah, even I learned that there's a lot of things that, yeah, it's a lot of things that you can learn from those data, even if you're working with them. It's like watching a movie, playing a video game, right? You learn it. It's like fun, right? And I really enjoy it.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah, you really taught something about music as you did your presentation. So that was great. And I think both Jen and Nic, and well, me too, like, okay, you laid out the terms, so we all could kind of keep up with the other presentations. Nic, I wanted to ask, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, what I was thinking before, right? I was thinking before the presentation, do I need to do something simple, or do I need to do something you can learn? Because if you cannot present something and you cannot explain it and the others can understand it, then you have a problem. Because for us, it's easy to understand and it's easy to see the numbers and we know it. But sometimes you have to think, explain like I'm 5 to the other people. All right, this is what I presented to you. Can you understand it? And let's go on. Let's say a story. I didn't use the best practices, just to be honest with you, with the whole how I have the things in the dashboard, but I think I can tell the story quite well.
No, I think you did great. And I think just to add to that, one of the things that I always do in dashboards as well is if I have any kind of concept that is not self-explanatory and it's really keeping the user in mind, put the text on the dashboard, do a description. You can also do it with tooltips and have like hover over with more details. The learn in experience where you can embed a video or a document that you can link to so people actually know how to consume the data. I think that's really key if you want your dashboards to be successful. So totally agree with you on that one.
I think all three of us would, if we'd had a month, it would be crazy what we would build, right? Because I mean, you could just go like, how many are, like you just count everything in each of those data, right? And it would be interesting alone. So
yeah,
it's deciding how you're going to do it. That's the hardest, I think.
Yeah. I wanted to just ask Nic you a question because there was some comments around the bulk action. If you don't mind sharing just a few comments around how you did it.
Yeah, sure. So in terms of the basics, I didn't really deviate too far from, there's some really great articles out there. There's one that's been around for a few years now, which I think was one of the original articles that came out when it first became a feature a few years back. And you don't really have to deviate too far from that as a template. It gives you the visual force, it gives you, and visual force tells you how old it is. It gives you a very simple visual force page and the Apex controller behind it. And even the Apex itself, it's like 20 lines, I think. And that Apex code will create records from your rows of data in your table, in your final table that you have. So and then obviously once you've got that data, you can then spin off other things. So say for instance, the way I did this was I set up a very simple trigger just to say like, okay, once a playlist is created and it's with some tracks, then we go and call the Spotify API and we process that data. And you could do, there's loads of applications for it. I mean, some of the things I've done in the past have been around marketing data and that kind of thing. So maybe filtering data down from maybe prospects into campaigns and campaign members based on data that they've got in in Salesforce. And it might be it might be data that's come from third parties. So you might have lots of different data that you're combining, mixing together in your Tableau CRM environment, and then you want to then build a list from that. And then once you've got that list, you can then create records in Salesforce from it, and then kick off other processes using Process Builder or flows to then carry out other tasks. So maybe connected to APIs or anything really, sending out stuff, anything. Yeah. So. But yeah, the backbone of it's fairly straightforward. Yeah.
All right. Well, thanks for sharing. So I think we are ready for revealing the results. So drum roll, we should actually had a playlist with drum roll or something here. We don't, so you have to imagine it. But hopefully we can get. Oh, of course I was missing that one.
Yay. Okay. So
sorry.
We just put together this like word cloud from the feedback of everybody. So we had this little question of, what was the thing that you enjoyed the most? And you can see, the data, the music, the everything, the storytelling, presentation, the non-technical, the concept of executive. Is important that we keep in mind who are we working for, right? Who are we crunching the data for? So fantastic. I really love this theme and style of meetup. So I know that takes a lot of time, guys. So I really, really appreciate your efforts on this. I think it's fantastic. So thanks again. This is going to be a nice one to rewatch, definitely. But without further ado, the winner of the 2021 Data Dance of DataTribe Maximum Wonder is Nic.
Yay! You need to play some music.
Yes. The irony is we have no music.
It's so awkward on here when you can't see everyone.
Congratulations.
Yeah.
It's been very close, but well done, everybody. Like, seriously, nice one.
Yeah, we need the applause.
Yeah. Thank you so much for all your effort. This is amazing to see. I think it's always great just to kind of see how much you can get from one single data set and how different people have different perspective of looking at data. So really, really interesting. And thanks for all the time you guys have spent on this. And congrats, Nic, of course. Amazing.
And I have to apologize to the other two because I didn't have any SACL on my dashboard. Because when you need it fast, there's no time for SACL, right?
All right, so I guess we just have to, what we have left is to wrap up. We will be announcing soon the next event, and I think we have some really exciting stuff coming up. Lots of engagement in the next event. I don't want to reveal too much right now, but it will, it's completely new, and you will get to be hands-on, and there's engagement. It's going to be fun. So we'll give you all the details. Just stay tuned on our meetup page, and also, of course, follow us on Twitter and the Trailblazer community, and we'll make sure to update you as soon as we have the dates and we have all the details for you to sign up. So, but do keep an eye out. It's going to be amazing. I am really excited for this one. So yeah, thank you so much for joining us, spending some time with us, and until next time.